Nobody respected the homeless cleaner. Every day people walked past him without even looking at him. Some ignored him, others treated him like he didn't matter. But while everyone judged him by his appearance, one kind woman did something nobody else would. She greeted him. She helped him. And when she noticed he was struggling, she made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. As their friendship grew, so did their feelings for each other. But the cleaner was hiding a secret so big that when the truth finally came out, it shattered her heart and threatened to destroy everything they had built together. What was he hiding? And would their love survive the truth? Stay until the end, because this emotional story has a twist you'll never see coming. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Ethan Blackwell had everything money could buy. At just 35 years old, he was one of the most successful businessmen in the country. His technology company was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Thousands of people worked for him. His face appeared on magazine covers. Business reporters constantly wanted interviews. Investors trusted him. Competitors respected him. From the outside, Ethan looked like a man living the perfect life. But appearances could be deceiving. Every morning, Ethan woke up in a luxurious penthouse apartment that overlooked the entire city. Floor-to-ceiling windows surrounded him. Expensive artwork decorated the walls. Imported furniture filled every room. Yet none of those things brought him happiness. Most mornings began the same way. The alarm clock would ring. Ethan would open his eyes and stare at the empty side of his enormous bed. No one was there. No loving wife. No children. No family waiting to greet him. Just silence. The kind of silence that money could never fix. One particular morning, Ethan stood by the giant windows in his living room holding a cup of coffee. Below him, the city was already awake. Cars filled the streets. People hurried to work. Parents walked children to school. Couples laughed together as they crossed intersections. Life moved forward. Meanwhile, Ethan stood alone. The city looked beautiful from above, but somehow he felt disconnected from it, almost like he was watching life happen instead of living it. His phone suddenly buzzed. Another business message, another meeting, another contract waiting for his approval. Ethan sighed and put the phone away. Sometimes he wished people would call just to ask how he was doing, not because they needed something, not because they wanted money, just because they cared. But those calls rarely came. Most people only saw Ethan Blackwell, the billionaire. Very few saw Ethan the man. An hour later, Ethan arrived at Blackwell Technologies. The headquarters towered above the city skyline. Employees immediately greeted him as he entered. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwell." "Morning, sir. Nice to see you, boss." Ethan smiled politely and nodded. Yet every greeting felt formal, respectful, professional, but distant. Nobody truly knew him. Nobody saw the lonely man hiding behind the expensive suits and successful image. As he entered the elevator, he caught his reflection in the mirror. Perfect haircut, expensive watch, custom-made suit, confident appearance. He looked exactly like the billionaire everyone expected him to be. But behind those eyes was a man carrying years of disappointment. The elevator doors opened. Another busy day began. Meetings filled his schedule from morning until evening. Investors, lawyers, executives, clients, everyone wanted something. Everyone needed something. By late afternoon, Ethan felt exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. Sometimes success felt like carrying a heavy weight that never left his shoulders. During a break between meetings, his gaze drifted toward a framed photograph sitting on his desk. The picture showed him standing beside a beautiful woman, Vanessa, the woman he once planned to marry. For a moment, Ethan's expression darkened. Memories flooded back. 3 years earlier, he had believed he was the luckiest man alive. He had been deeply in love. Vanessa was beautiful, intelligent, and charming, or at least that's what he thought. The two had dated for nearly 2 years. When Ethan proposed, she had immediately said yes. He remembered how happy he felt. For the first time, he believed he had found someone who loved him for who he was. Someone who saw beyond the money. Someone who saw his heart. But everything changed one evening. It was a memory Ethan could never forget. They were supposed to meet for dinner at an upscale restaurant. Ethan had arrived early. As he walked toward their reserved table, he heard familiar voices coming from a nearby private booth. One of the voices belonged to Vanessa. First he smiled, then he stopped. Something in her tone sounded strange. "What do you mean you don't love him?" her friend asked. Vanessa laughed. The sound made Ethan freeze. "Love," she said. "Please." Her friend sounded confused. "Then why are you marrying him?" Vanessa took a sip of her drink. "Because Ethan Blackwell is worth hundreds of millions." Both women laughed. Ethan felt his heart pounding. His hands trembled. He prayed he had heard wrong, but then Vanessa continued. "Do you honestly think I'd walk away from that kind of money?" Her friend shook her head. "So you're only with him because he's rich?" "Of course." More laughter. Every word felt like a knife. Ethan stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. The woman he planned to spend the rest of his life with had never loved him. Not even a little. To her, he was simply a bank account, a prize, a ticket to luxury, nothing more. He quietly turned around before they could see him. Then he walked out of the restaurant alone. That night was one of the darkest nights of his life. The next morning he ended the engagement. Vanessa cried. She begged. She apologized. But Ethan already knew the truth. And once trust is broken, some things can never be repaired. Since then, Ethan's heart had built walls around itself. Every relationship afterward felt suspicious. Every compliment felt calculated. Every smile seemed connected to his wealth. The experience changed him, and not for the better. As evening approached, Ethan finally left the office. The city lights sparkled outside. Most employees had already gone home. The building was nearly empty. He could have gone home too, but home didn't feel much different. Just another empty place waiting for him. So he stayed. Hours passed. The office grew quieter. Outside, rain began falling against the windows. Ethan sat alone in the conference room, staring at the city below. For a long time, he simply listened to the rain. Then he noticed movement. A janitor was cleaning nearby. The elderly man pushed his cleaning cart slowly through the hallway. His gray hair and wrinkled face showed decades of hard work. Unlike most people, he always greeted Ethan warmly, not because he was the CEO, just because he was kind. The old man smiled. "Working late again, Mr. Blackwell?" Ethan smiled back. "Looks like it." The janitor chuckled. "You spend too much time in this building." "You're probably right." The old man continued cleaning. Then after a moment he spoke again. "You know, sun money can buy many things." Ethan laughed softly. "I've heard that before." The janitor nodded. "But it can't buy the things that matter most." Ethan looked at him. The old man's eyes were calm and wise. "It can't buy loyalty." He paused. "It can't buy trust." Another pause. "And it certainly can't buy someone who stays when the money disappears." The words hit Ethan like lightning. He stared at the old man. For a moment neither spoke. The janitor simply smiled and continued his work. But Ethan remained frozen in his chair. Someone who stays when the money disappears. The sentence echoed through his mind, again and again and again. Long after the janitor left, long after the rain stopped, long after midnight, for the first time in years Ethan found himself wondering something. What if there was a way to know the truth about people? What if he could meet someone who didn't know he was a billionaire? What if he could find out whether genuine love still existed? As he stared out at the endless city lights, a dangerous idea slowly began taking shape inside his mind. An idea that would soon change his life forever. The conversation with the elderly janitor stayed in Ethan Blackwell's mind for days. No matter how hard he tried to focus on work, those words kept returning. It can't be someone who stays when the money disappears. The sentence echoed in his thoughts during meetings. It followed him during business lunches. It even followed him home at night. For years, Ethan had convinced himself that he was over what Vanessa had done. He told himself he had moved on. He told himself he was stronger now. But deep down he knew the truth. The betrayal had left scars. Scars that money could not heal. One Friday evening, Ethan attended a charity gala, hosted by some of the city's wealthiest business leaders. The event was held inside a luxurious hotel ballroom. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Elegant music filled the air. Guests wore expensive suits and designer gowns. As soon as Ethan entered the room, people rushed toward him. Business executives wanted handshakes. Investors wanted conversations. Reporters wanted photographs. And several beautiful women immediately tried to get his attention. Ethan smiled politely as he spoke with guests. But inside he felt disconnected. One woman laughed loudly at every joke he made, even the ones that weren't funny. Another spent 20 minutes complimenting his appearance. A third casually mentioned how much she admired successful men. Everything felt rehearsed. Everything felt forced. At one point, Ethan stepped away from the crowd and walked toward a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The cool night air felt refreshing. For a moment, he finally had peace. Then he overheard two women talking nearby. They didn't realize he was standing there. "That's Ethan Blackwell," one whispered. "The billionaire." "Yes." The second woman smiled. "I'd marry him tomorrow." The first woman laughed. Who wouldn't imagine never having to worry about money again? The women continued talking, but Ethan had already heard enough. His chest tightened. The words sounded painfully familiar, almost identical to what Vanessa had once said. Slowly, he turned and walked away. The excitement of the gala suddenly felt empty. A few minutes later, he quietly left the event without telling anyone. Outside, the city streets were alive with activity. Instead of calling his driver, Ethan decided to drive himself. He needed time to think. He drove aimlessly through the city, past luxury stores, past crowded restaurants, past busy intersections glowing with traffic lights. For nearly an hour, he simply drove. Then something caught his attention. A red traffic light forced him to stop. As he waited, he looked toward a nearby bus stop. There sat a young couple. Their clothes were simple. Nothing about them suggested wealth. The young man wore a faded jacket. The woman carried an old backpack. They probably didn't have much money, yet they looked happier than anyone Ethan had seen all evening. The young woman laughed so hard that tears filled her eyes. The man pretended to be offended, making her laugh even more. A moment later, he gently wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She rested her head against him. Neither seemed worried about the future. Neither cared about expensive cars. Neither cared about luxury. For those few moments, they simply enjoyed being together. The traffic light turned green. Cars behind Ethan honked, but Ethan remained still for a second, watching them. Something about that scene touched him deeply. It reminded him of everything he lacked. Not wealth, not success, not power, love. Real love. The kind that couldn't be bought. The kind that couldn't be influenced by money. The kind that stayed during difficult times. As he drove away, a painful question entered his mind. Would anyone love me if I had nothing? The question haunted him all the way home. That night, Ethan sat alone in his penthouse. The city lights sparkled outside his windows. Normally, he would watch television or review business reports before bed. Instead, he sat quietly in the darkness thinking. Hours passed. The more he thought, the more the same idea returned. What if people only saw his money? What if nobody ever? He got the chance to know the real Ethan. The more he considered it, the more he realized something important. Almost everyone he met already knew who he was before speaking to him. His reputation entered the room before he did. His wealth shaped every conversation. His success influenced every opinion. People weren't meeting Ethan Blackwell. They were meeting the billionaire. For the first time, he wondered what would happen if all of that disappeared. Would anyone still value him? Would anyone still care? Would anyone still choose him? The next morning, Ethan woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in months, he felt strangely energized. An idea had taken root, and it refused to leave. By afternoon, he had made up his mind. There was only one person he trusted enough to discuss it with: Marcus Reed. Marcus had been Ethan's closest friend since their college days. Unlike most people in Ethan's life, Marcus had known him long before the money, long before the company, long before the fame. If anyone would tell him the truth, it was Marcus. Later that evening, the two men met at Marcus's favorite restaurant. After exchanging greetings, Marcus immediately noticed something unusual. "You've got that look again." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What look?" "The look you get right before doing something crazy." Ethan laughed. "You know me too well." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "All right, what is it this time?" For a moment, Ethan hesitated. Then he explained everything. The loneliness, the failed engagement, the conversation with the janitor, the couple at the bus stop, the questions that wouldn't leave his mind. Marcus listened carefully. When Ethan finally revealed his plan, Marcus nearly choked on his drink. "You want to do what?" Ethan smiled. "I want to disguise myself." Marcus stared at him. "You're serious? Completely serious?" Marcus rubbed his forehead. "This is insane." "Maybe. You own one of the largest companies in the country." "I know. And your solution is to pretend you're poor." Ethan nodded. "Not poor." Marcus looked unconvinced. "Then what?" Ethan took a deep breath. "A cleaner." For several seconds, Marcus simply stared at him. Then he burst into laughter. Loud laughter. The kind that made nearby customers turn around. Ethan waited, patiently. Eventually, Marcus calmed down. "You've officially lost your mind." Ethan smiled. "Probably." Marcus shook his head. "A cleaner? In your own company?" "Yes." "Do you realize how ridiculous that sounds?" Ethan's smile slowly disappeared. His expression became serious. "Marcus." Something in his voice caused Marcus to stop laughing. For the first time, Marcus saw genuine pain in his friend's eyes. Not frustration, not stress, pain. Years of it. "I need this." Marcus remained silent. Ethan continued. "Every relationship feels fake." His voice softened. "I don't know who likes me anymore." He looked down at the table. "I don't know who sees me." Marcus listened quietly. "I just want one chance," Ethan said. "One chance to meet someone who doesn't know about the money." The restaurant suddenly felt very quiet. Marcus had known Ethan for years. He had seen his success, his victories, his achievements. But he had also seen the loneliness, the sleepless nights, the broken trust, the emotional scars left behind by Vanessa. Finally, Marcus sighed. "You've really thought this through, haven't you?" Ethan nodded. Every day for the past week. Marcus sat quietly for a long moment. Then a small smile appeared on his face. You know what? What? This might be the dumbest idea you've ever had. Ethan laughed. But Marcus smiled. But maybe it's exactly what you need. For the first time in years, Ethan felt hope. A small spark, a tiny possibility. Perhaps somewhere out there was a woman who could love him without knowing his wealth. A woman who would choose the man instead of the money. And if she existed, Ethan was determined to find her. No matter what it took, the decision had been made. For the first time in years, Ethan Blackwell felt nervous. Not nervous about a business deal, not nervous about investors, not nervous about losing money. This was different. He was about to step into a world where nobody would see him as a billionaire. A world where he would no longer be Ethan Blackwell, the powerful CEO. Instead, he would become someone ordinary, someone invisible, someone people would barely notice. And strangely, that frightened him. A week after his conversation with Marcus, the preparations began. Only a handful of people knew the truth. Marcus knew, the company's board of directors knew, and Ethan's personal assistant Sarah knew. Everyone else believed Ethan was taking an extended leave to focus on international business projects. The excuse seemed believable. After all, Ethan frequently traveled for work. Nobody questioned it. One Monday morning, Ethan stood in front of a large mirror inside a private studio. Professional makeup artists worked around him. His expensive hairstyle was replaced with a simple, unremarkable cut. Fake wrinkles were added around his eyes. A pair of thick glasses changed the shape of his face. His neatly trimmed beard was altered. Even the way he dressed transformed him. Gone were the custom-made suits worth thousands of dollars. Gone were the luxury watches. Gone were the polished leather shoes. Instead, he wore faded work pants, a simple shirt, and old sneakers that looked years worn. When the transformation was complete, Ethan barely recognized himself. Marcus stood nearby staring. Then he laughed. You actually look like a guy who fixes broken pipes and argues with landlords. Ethan laughed. That's encouraging. No, seriously. Marcus walked around him. If I didn't know it was you, I wouldn't recognize you. Ethan turned back toward the mirror. For a moment, he simply stared. The man looking back at him seemed completely different. Ordinary, forgettable, invisible. A strange feeling settled inside him. For years, he had been treated like someone important. Now he looked like someone people might walk past without a second glance. The thought was unsettling yet exciting. Ready? Marcus asked. Ethan took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. 2 days later, Ethan officially began his new life. His new name was Eric Carter. According to company records, Eric was a recently hired cleaner assigned to Blackwell Technologies headquarters. Everything had been carefully arranged. The fake employment records looked authentic. The identification badge looked real. Nobody would suspect a thing. As Ethan entered the building that morning, he felt his heart racing. For years, he had walked through these doors as the owner. Employees would greet him. Security guards would stand straighter. Managers would rush to help him. Today was different, very different. The security guard glanced at his badge. Morning. Morning. Ethan replied. The guard immediately looked away. That was it. No special treatment. No recognition. No respect based on status. Just another worker entering the building. For some reason, the experience felt strange, almost painful. Yet Ethan reminded himself why he was doing this. He wasn't here to be admired. He was here to find the truth. His supervisor, a cheerful woman named Brenda, introduced him to the cleaning staff. Most of them were hard-working men and women simply trying to support their families. They welcomed him warmly. Unlike many executives, Ethan knew these people seemed genuine. They laughed easily, helped one another, shared stories during breaks. Nobody cared about status. Nobody cared about wealth. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt surprisingly comfortable. The morning passed quickly. He cleaned hallways, emptied trash bins, wiped windows, mopped floors. The work was physically exhausting. By lunchtime, his back ached. His hands hurt. Sweat covered his forehead. Yet something unexpected happened. He enjoyed it. Not because cleaning was easy, but because nobody expected anything from him. There were no investors demanding answers, no reporters asking questions, no executives requesting meetings. Just honest work, simple work, work that ended when the shift ended. For the first time in years, his mind felt peaceful. That peace didn't last long. As the days passed, Ethan began noticing something uncomfortable. Many employees treated cleaners as if they didn't exist. People walked past without making eye contact. Some barely said hello. Others left messes without a second thought. One afternoon, Ethan was cleaning a conference room when several executives entered. They immediately started discussing business. Not one acknowledged his presence. Not one greeted him. It was as if he were invisible. The realization hurt more than he expected. When he had been CEO, these same people hung on every word he spoke. Now they couldn't even spare a greeting. The experience opened Ethan's eyes. For years, he had believed people respected him because of who he was. Now, he wondered how much of that respect came from his position. One particular incident stayed with him. He was carrying a bucket of cleaning supplies down a hallway when a young employee accidentally bumped into him. The bucket tipped over. Water splashed across the floor. Cleaning products scattered everywhere. The employee glanced down, then rolled his eyes. "Watch where you're going." Before Ethan could respond, the man walked away. No apology. No offer to help. Nothing. Ethan stood there staring after him. Part of him wanted to reveal his true identity. Part of him wanted to call the employee into his office and demand an explanation. But there was no office anymore. No power. No authority. Just a janitor standing in a hallway. Slowly, he knelt and began cleaning the mess himself. At that moment, he realized something important. This experiment was going to teach him far more than he expected. A few days later, something happened that changed everything. It was early morning. Most employees were just arriving. Ethan was wiping down a reception desk when he heard a cheerful voice. "Good morning." He looked up. A young woman stood. For a moment, Ethan was surprised. Most employees barely acknowledged him. "Good morning," he replied. The woman nodded and continued walking toward the elevators. That was all. A simple greeting. Nothing extraordinary. Yet Ethan found himself watching her leave. Something felt different. Later that day, he saw her again. This time, she was helping an elderly receptionist carry a heavy box. Another time, he saw her holding a door open for a delivery worker. Then, he noticed her thanking security guards by name. The more he observed her, the more curious he became. She treated everyone with the same kindness. Executives, receptionists, cleaners, security guards. It didn't matter. Everyone received the same respect. One afternoon, Ethan asked another employee about her. "Oh, that's Lily Carter." "Lily?" The employee nodded. "She works in customer relations." Ethan glanced toward her desk. Lily was laughing with a coworker. There was something refreshing about her, something genuine. For the first time since beginning his disguise, Ethan felt a spark of interest. Not because she was beautiful, though she certainly was, but because she seemed different, real. As he watched her from across the room, he had no idea that meeting Lily Carter would completely change his life. Nor did he know that the journey he had started to find love was finally beginning. After learning her name, Ethan found himself noticing Lily Carter more and more. At first, he told himself it was simple curiosity. After all, she was one of the few people in the company who treated him like a human being. Most employees walked past him without a glance. Some barely acknowledged his existence. Others acted as though cleaners were part of the furniture. But Lily was different. Every morning she greeted people with the same warm smile. It didn't matter whether they were executives, security guards, receptionists, or members of the cleaning staff. Everyone received the same kindness, and that fascinated Ethan. One Tuesday morning, Ethan was mopping a hallway near the customer relation. All right, that's good. She smiled again before walking away. The conversation lasted less than 10 seconds, but strangely it brightened his entire morning. Over the next few weeks, their interactions became more frequent. Sometimes they exchanged greetings. Sometimes they chatted briefly during breaks. Other times they simply smiled as they passed each other. Nothing serious, nothing romantic, just small moments. Yet, Ethan found himself looking forward to them. One afternoon, he was cleaning windows near the company cafeteria when he noticed Lily sitting alone during lunch. She appeared distracted, almost worried. Several times she checked her phone. Then she sighed. For some reason, Ethan felt concerned. When she noticed him nearby, she forced a smile. "Hey, Eric. Hey, you look busy." Ethan laughed softly. "That's usually what happens when you're paid to clean things." Lily chuckled. For the first time that day, her smile looked genuine. Then Ethan noticed the tiredness in her eyes. "You okay?" She hesitated. For a moment, it seemed like she might brush off the question. Instead, she sighed. "My mom's been having a rough week." Ethan listened carefully. "Is she sick?" Lily nodded. "She's been dealing with health problems for years." Her voice softened. "Some days are better than others." "I'm sorry." She smiled weakly. "We manage." There was no self-pity in her voice. No complaints, just quiet strength. Ethan admired that. Many wealthy people he knew complained constantly about small inconveniences. Yet, here was a woman carrying real burdens while still finding reasons to smile. That evening, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about their conversation. For the first time, he wanted to know more about her life. Not because he was testing her, not because of his experiment, but because he genuinely cared. A few days later, Ethan witnessed something that deepened his admiration even further. An elderly delivery driver arrived carrying several heavy boxes. The man looked exhausted as he struggled through the front entrance. Dozens of employees walked past him. Nobody offered assistance. Nobody seemed to notice. Then Lily appeared. Without hesitation, she hurried over. "Let me help you." The driver smiled gratefully. Together they carried the boxes inside. The entire exchange lasted only a few minutes. Yet, it revealed everything Ethan needed to know about her character. She helped people even when nobody was watching. She wasn't kind because it made her look good. She was kind because that was who she was. And, in Ethan's experience, people like that were rare, very rare. One rainy afternoon, Ethan experienced another reason to appreciate Lily. He was carrying a bucket filled with cleaning supplies down a hallway. At the same time, several employees rushed past him. Someone accidentally bumped his shoulder. The bucket slipped from his hands. Water splashed across the floor. Cleaning supplies scattered everywhere. The sound echoed through the hallway. Several employees glanced over, then continued walking. Nobody stopped. Nobody offered help. Ethan wasn't surprised. He had grown accustomed to being ignored. Slowly, he knelt and began gathering the supplies. Then he heard a familiar voice. "Oh, no." He looked up. Lily was hurrying toward him. Without hesitation, she knelt beside him. "Are you all right?" Ethan nodded. "I am fine." She immediately started helping collect the scattered items. "You don't have to do that." "Of course I do." She handed him a bottle of cleaning solution. "It'll take half the time if we both help." Ethan watched her for a moment. Rain tapped softly against the windows nearby. Employees continued walking past. Yet Lily remained on the floor helping him. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. Within minutes, everything was cleaned up. As they stood, Ethan smiled. "Thank you. You're welcome." Then she shrugged. "Besides, accidents happen." Such simple words, yet they touched him more than she realized. For years, Ethan had been surrounded by people who measured value through money and status. Lily measured people differently. She simply saw human beings. Nothing more, nothing less. That evening, Ethan shared the story with Marcus. The two friends met for dinner after work. Marcus listened quietly. Then he smiled. "You like her?" Ethan nearly choked on his drink. "What?" Marcus laughed. "You like her? I barely know her. You talk about her every time we meet." Ethan rolled his eyes. "She's just nice." Marcus grinned. "That's not a denial." Ethan shook his head. But deep down he knew Marcus wasn't entirely wrong. The truth was simple. He admired Lily more than he wanted to admit. Over the following weeks, Ethan gradually learned more about her. He discovered that her father had passed away several years earlier. Since then, Lily had become the primary support for her family. Her mother's medical treatments were expensive. To help cover the costs, Lily often worked overtime. She rarely spent money on herself. Most of her income went toward caring for her mother. The more Ethan learned, the more impressed he became. Despite everything she faced, she remained positive. She remained kind. She remained generous. One evening, Ethan happened to see her leaving work late. Curious, he followed. At a distance, not because he wanted to invade her privacy, simply because he wanted to ensure she got home safely. He watched as she stopped at a grocery store. After shopping, she carried several bags to a modest apartment building. A few moments later, an older woman opened the door. Lily immediately hugged her. Even from a distance, Ethan could see the love between them. The sight touched his heart. For some reason, it reminded him of the family he never had. The family he always wanted: a wife, children, a home filled with warmth, not just luxury. As Ethan returned to his car that evening, he realized something important. His feelings for Lily were growing slowly, quietly, but undeniably. For the first time in years, his heart was beginning to trust again. And that terrified him, because he knew one thing for certain: if Lily ever discovered the truth about who he really was, everything could change. Yet despite the risk, Ethan found himself smiling during the drive home, because for the first time in a very long time, life felt hopeful. And that hope had a name: Lily Carter. The weeks that followed became some of the happiest Ethan had experienced in years. For the first time since becoming Eric, the company cleaner, he found himself looking forward to each day. Not because of work, not because of business, not because of money, because of Lily. Every morning, Ethan arrived a little earlier than necessary. He would start his cleaning duties as usual, but part of him always hoped to catch a glimpse of Lily walking through the front doors. And somehow, seeing her smile always made the day better. One Monday morning, Ethan was cleaning the reception area when Lily arrived carrying her usual cup of coffee. As soon as she saw him, her face brightened. "Good morning, Eric." "Good morning." She stopped beside him. "You look happier today." Ethan laughed. "Do I?" "Definitely. Maybe it's because it's Monday." Lily immediately laughed. Nobody is happy because it's Monday. Ethan chuckled. Good point. For a few moments they simply stood there talking. It wasn't a deep conversation. Nothing important was discussed. Yet Ethan enjoyed every second. When Lily finally headed toward the elevators, he found himself smiling. Brenda, the cleaning supervisor, noticed. She raised an eyebrow. Someone seems cheerful. Ethan quickly returned to mopping. I'm always cheerful. Brenda laughed. Sure you are. The teasing continued throughout the week. It seemed everyone could see what Ethan was trying hard to ignore. He genuinely enjoyed Lily's company. The friendship that had started with simple greetings was becoming something deeper. One afternoon during lunch, Ethan sat alone in the cafeteria. Normally, he preferred quiet corners where nobody paid attention to him. As he ate, Lily walked into the room carrying a tray. Several tables were occupied. Then she spotted him. To Ethan's surprise, she walked directly over. Mind if I sit here? His heart skipped slightly. Of course not. She sat down. Soon they were talking and laughing, as though they had known each other for years. Lily told him funny stories about difficult customers. Ethan shared harmless stories from his supposed past. He had to be careful not to reveal too much. Every conversation required balance. He wanted honesty, but he couldn't reveal he was actually the owner of the company. The secret weighed heavily on him. Still, he pushed those thoughts aside. For now, he simply enjoyed being with her. As lunch ended, Lily smiled. You know, Eric, you're easy to talk to. The words surprised him. So are you. She stood and gathered her tray. Maybe we should do this again tomorrow. Ethan watched her walk away. His heart felt lighter than it had in years. The next day they ate lunch together again, then the day after that. Soon it became routine. Employees began noticing. Some even joked that Lily and the cleaner were becoming best friends. Neither seemed to mind. One rainy evening, Ethan stayed late to finish cleaning a conference room. Most employees had already gone home. As he worked, he noticed a light still on in the customer relations department. Curious, he walked past. Lily sat alone at her desk. Stacks of paperwork surrounded her. She looked exhausted. Ethan knocked gently on the open door. You okay? She looked up and smiled. Barely. He glanced at the paperwork. That's a lot. You have no idea. Ethan stepped inside. Why are you still here? Lily sighed. Over time. She rubbed her eyes. Mom's medical bills increased again. Ethan felt a sharp pain in his chest. Despite everything she was dealing with, she never complained, never asked for sympathy, never expected help. She simply worked harder. That must be difficult. Lily nodded. Some days are. Then she smiled. But we'll get through it. Ethan admired her strength. Many people would have become bitter. Lily remained hopeful. That made her even more special. A few days later, Ethan arrived at work wearing the same old sneakers he had been using since starting his disguise. The shoes were badly worn. The soles were nearly separating. During lunch, Lily noticed. Her expression immediately changed. Eric, what? She pointed downward. Those shoes are falling apart. Ethan glanced at them. They still work. No, they don't. They mostly work. Lily laughed. That's not the same thing. Ethan shrugged. I'll replace them eventually. But Lily wasn't convinced. The conversation ended there. At least Ethan thought it had. The next morning he arrived at work and opened his locker. Inside sat a small box. Confused, he looked around. Nobody seemed to be watching. Slowly, he opened it. Inside was a brand new pair of sneakers. For several seconds Ethan simply stared. Then he noticed a note. Everyone deserves comfortable shoes. Please don't argue about this. Lily. His throat tightened. Suddenly, he couldn't speak. The shoes weren't expensive. In fact, compared to the wealth he owned, they were worth almost nothing. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the reason behind them. Lily believed he was an ordinary cleaner struggling to get by. She had spent her own money to help him, not because she expected anything in return, not because she wanted recognition, simply because she cared. Ethan sat down slowly. For a moment, tears filled his eyes. He quickly wiped them away. The gesture touched him more deeply than she could ever imagine. Over the years, people had given him expensive gifts, luxury watches, designer clothes, rare collectibles. But none of those gifts had meant as much as the simple pair of shoes, because those gifts had been given to Ethan Blackwell, the billionaire. These shoes were given to Eric, the cleaner, given with genuine kindness, given from the heart. Later that afternoon, Ethan found Lily near the coffee machine. He held up one of the new sneakers. "You did this." Lily smiled innocently. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Ethan laughed. "You shouldn't have. I wanted to. They must have cost money. They were on sale." Ethan shook his head. "You need that money more than I do." Lily's smile softened. "Maybe." Then she looked directly at him. "But friends help each other." Friends. The word warmed his heart. For the rest of the day, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about it. That evening, he met Marcus for dinner. As usual, Marcus immediately noticed something. "You look ridiculously happy." Ethan laughed. "I do not." "You do." Marcus leaned forward. What happened? Ethan told him about the shoes. Marcus listened carefully. When the story ended, he smiled. "She bought shoes for a cleaner she thinks can barely afford them." Ethan nodded. Marcus leaned back. "Interesting. What most people spend money trying to impress wealthy people." He pointed toward Ethan. "She spent money helping someone she believes has nothing." Ethan smiled. "That's who she is." Marcus studied his friend. Then his expression became serious. "You've fallen for her." This time Ethan didn't argue. He didn't deny it, because deep down he knew it was true. Somewhere along the way, this experiment had stopped being an experiment. His feelings had become real, very real, and that frightened him. Because every day he spent with Lily, the secret became heavier. Every laugh, every conversation, every shared moment made the truth harder to reveal. Yet despite the fear, Ethan couldn't stop his heart from moving closer to hers. For the first time in years, he was falling in love. And for the first time in years, he believed that maybe, just maybe, someone might love him back. As the weeks passed, Ethan found himself falling deeper in love with Lily. It wasn't because of her beauty, though she was beautiful. It wasn't because of her smile, though her smile could brighten even his worst days. It was because of who she was. Every day she showed kindness to people who could offer her nothing in return. Every day she chose compassion when others chose indifference. And every day Ethan found more reasons to admire her. Yet despite how happy he felt, one problem remained. The secret. The truth about who he really was. Every time Lily smiled at him, guilt tugged at his heart. Every time she called him Eric, he felt a small ache inside, because Eric wasn't real. The friendship was real. His feelings were real, but his identity was a lie. One evening, Ethan sat across from Marcus in a quiet restaurant. The two friends had met after work, as they often did. Marcus listened while Ethan talked about Lily. He talked about her mother, her long work hours, her generosity, her determination. When Ethan finally stopped speaking, Marcus smiled. "You realize you've spent 20 minutes talking about her." Ethan laughed. "Is it that obvious?" It's painful. Both men chuckled. Then Marcus became serious. You love her. This time, Ethan didn't deny it. He simply nodded. Yeah. The admission felt strange, yet it also felt right. For years he had guarded his heart. For years he had refused to trust anyone. Now somehow Lily had changed that. Marcus folded his arms. So what happens next? Ethan looked down at his coffee. I don't know. You'll have to tell her eventually. I know, Marcus sighed. Then he leaned forward. Before you do that, there's something you need to know. Ethan raised an eyebrow. What? How can you be sure? Ethan frowned. Sure about what? Sure, she's different. Immediately, Ethan's expression hardened. Marcus. No, listen. Marcus held up his hand. I'm not saying she's fake. Then what are you saying? I'm saying you've been hurt before. Ethan remained silent. Marcus continued. Vanessa fooled you. The mention of her name immediately brought back painful memories. Marcus wasn't wrong. Vanessa had convinced Ethan she loved him. And for a long time he believed her until the truth shattered everything. What if? You're wrong again, Marcus asked quietly. Ethan stared out the window. Part of him hated the question because deep down he had asked himself the same thing many times. What do you suggest? Ethan finally asked. Marcus hesitated. Then a slow smile appeared. I think we should test her. Ethan immediately shook his head. No. Why not? Because she's not like that. Maybe. Marcus leaned back. But if you're right, then the test changes nothing. Ethan thought about it. A part of him disliked the idea. Felt unfair. Lily had done nothing wrong. Still another part of him understood Marcus's concern. After what happened with Vanessa, trust did not come easily. Eventually, Ethan sighed. What kind of test? Marcus smiled. Now Ethan knew he had been planning this all along. A few days later, the plan began. Marcus would pretend to represent a wealthy businessman, not Ethan, someone completely different, a successful entrepreneur supposedly interested in meeting Lily. The goal wasn't to trick her into a relationship. The goal was simply to see how she responded when offered the kind of lifestyle many people dreamed about. The first step was simple: flowers. A large bouquet of beautiful roses arrived at Lily's desk. Employees immediately gathered around. Oh my goodness, who sent these? They're gorgeous. Lily looked confused. Attached was a card. To the most courting desk, beautiful woman in the building. No name, no explanation, just the flowers. When Ethan saw them, he felt unexpectedly nervous. What if she liked the attention? What if she accepted? The thought bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Later that afternoon, Lily approached him. Someone sent me flowers. Ethan forced a smile. I heard. She rolled her eyes. It's ridiculous. Ethan blinked. Ridiculous. I don't even know who sent them. She laughed softly. People are strange. Then she returned to work. The flowers never even left her desk. By the end of the day, she had given them to the receptionist to take home. Ethan couldn't stop smiling. A week later, the second part of the test began. This time, a gift basket arrived. It contained expensive chocolates, perfume, and several luxury items. The attached note invited Lily to dinner. Again, no name. Again, no explanation. Employees were practically losing their minds. Some were jealous. Others were impressed. A few openly wished they were in her position. Lily, however, looked annoyed. When Ethan passed her desk later that day, he noticed the basket untouched. You don't seem excited, he said. Lily laughed. Should I be? Most people would be. She shrugged. Maybe. Then her smile faded. I don't need gifts from strangers. Ethan felt warmth spread through his chest. Her answer was, Simple, honest, exactly what he hoped to hear. Still, Marcus wasn't finished. The final test. He said one evening. What now? Marcus grinned. A car. Ethan nearly spit out his drink. A car. Trust me. 3 days later, a luxury car appeared in the company parking lot. A giant ribbon sat on top. Employees crowded around it. Phones came out. Pictures were taken. The excitement spread throughout the building. When Lily arrived and discovered the car was supposedly for her, she looked completely shocked. A representative, actually one of Marcus's employees, approached her. Congratulations. Lily stared. For what? The vehicle is yours. She looked at the man as though he had lost his mind. What vehicle? The one behind me. Employees watched eagerly. Some looked jealous. Others looked amazed. The representative smiled. Our client hopes you'll accept. Lily crossed her arms. And who exactly is your client? A successful businessman. Lily sighed. Then she did something nobody expected. She held out the keys. Give these back. The representative blinked. What? I don't want the car. The parking lot became silent. Everyone stared. The man looked confused. Are you sure? Very. It's worth a lot of money. Lily smiled politely. I'm aware. Most people would be thrilled. That's nice. Then she gently placed the keys into his hand. Please return them. The man stood frozen. Lily turned and walked away. Ethan had watched everything from a distance. His heart felt like it might burst. That evening, Marcus called him immediately. Well, Marcus laughed. You should have seen it. I did. No hesitation. Marcus shook his head. None. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Marcus smiled. I think you found her. The words hit Ethan harder than expected, because for the first time he truly believed it. Yet there was one final piece of the puzzle. The next day, Marcus decided to ask the question directly. He approached Lily during lunch, introducing himself as the representative of the wealthy businessman. Lily listened patiently. Then Marcus smiled. My client is curious. About what? Why you've refused everything. Lily laughed. Because I don't know him. Suppose you met him. No. Marcus raised an eyebrow. No, Lily shook her head. My answer would still be no. Marcus studied her carefully. Why? For a moment, Lily looked away. A faint smile appeared on her face. The kind of smile people make when thinking about someone special. Then she spoke. Because my heart already belongs to someone. Marcus felt excitement. Really? She nodded. Really? Who? Lily smiled. The cleaner. Marcus nearly laughed out loud. Instead, he maintained a calm expression. The cleaner, yes. She looked slightly embarrassed. But don't tell him. Marcus nodded. Your secret is safe with me. As he walked away, he immediately called Ethan. When Ethan answered, Marcus didn't waste time. She chose you? Ethan's heart pounded. What did she say? Marcus smiled. She said her heart belongs to the cleaner. For several seconds, Ethan couldn't speak. Emotion filled his chest. After years of disappointment, after years of loneliness, after years of wondering if genuine love still existed, someone had finally chosen him. Not Ethan Blackwell, the billionaire. Not the CEO. Not the wealthy businessman. But Eric the cleaner. And for the first time in many years, tears filled Ethan's eyes. Because deep down he knew his life was about to change forever. For days after Marcus shared Lily's confession, Ethan walked around feeling as though he were living inside a dream. Every time he saw her smile, his heart raced. Every time she greeted him, he remembered her words. My heart already belongs to someone. And that someone was him. Or at least the version of him she knew. Eric the cleaner. The man she believed he was. The thought filled him with happiness. But it also filled him with fear. Because the closer they became, the harder it was to hide the truth. The secret that once felt necessary now felt like a wall standing between them. Every conversation carried guilt. Every laugh reminded him that Lily trusted someone who didn't truly exist. One afternoon, Ethan sat alone in an empty conference room. The city skyline stretched beyond the glass windows. Normally, this room had been where he made million-dollar decisions. Now he sat there thinking about something far more important. Love. The door opened. Marcus stepped inside. One look at Ethan's face told him everything. "You've been thinking." Ethan laughed softly. "Is it that obvious?" Marcus nodded. "You're worried." Ethan sighed. "I can't keep lying to her." Marcus sat across from him. "Then don't." Ethan looked down. "It's not that simple." "Actually, it is." Marcus leaned forward. "The longer you wait, the worse this becomes." Deep down, Ethan knew he was right. Every additional day only increased the chance that Lily would feel betrayed. Yet the thought of losing her terrified him. "What if she walks away?" Ethan asked quietly. Marcus remained silent for a moment. Then he answered honestly, "She might." The words hurt, but Ethan appreciated the truth. Marcus wasn't the kind of friend who offered false comfort. "If she truly cares about you," Marcus continued, "you'll work through it. And if she doesn't," Marcus shrugged, "then it was never meant to be." That evening, Ethan made a decision. The truth had to come out. No more lies. No more disguises. No more pretending. He would tell Lily everything. A few days later, he asked her to dinner. When he approached her desk, she looked pleasantly surprised. "Dinner?" Ethan smiled nervously. "Yeah, just dinner." He laughed. "Just dinner." A playful smile appeared on her face. "Okay." The moment she agreed, Ethan felt both excitement and fear. This dinner would change everything, one way or another. The next several days felt endless. Ethan spent hours preparing, not because he wanted to impress her, because he wanted to be honest. For the first time since becoming Eric, he would appear as himself. The real Ethan Blackwell. The billionaire. The CEO. The man behind the disguise. As the evening finally arrived, Ethan stood in front of a mirror inside his penthouse. The fake glasses were gone. The worn clothes were gone. The janitor uniform was gone. Instead, he wore a tailored black suit. For the first time in months, he looked like Ethan Blackwell again. Yet, strangely, he felt less confident than he ever had during a business meeting. Because this wasn't about money. This wasn't about success. This was about his heart. And hearts were far more fragile. Meanwhile, Lily arrived at the restaurant. The moment she stepped out of her taxi, confusion appeared on her face. The restaurant was one of the most exclusive establishments in the city. Luxury vehicles filled the parking area. Valets stood at the entrance. Everything about the place screamed wealth. Lily hesitated. Maybe she had the wrong location. She checked the message again. No, this was the correct place. Slowly she entered. A hostess greeted her immediately. "Good evening, Miss Carter." Lily blinked. "How do you know my name?" The hostess smiled. "We've been expecting you." That only increased her confusion. She followed the hostess deeper into the restaurant. Then she froze. Sitting at a private table near the windows was Ethan, or rather someone who looked familiar yet different. The face was Doma. Dome. Dade. Don. Die. Die. The posture wasn't. The confidence wasn't. This wasn't Eric the cleaner. This was someone else entirely. Someone powerful. Someone wealthy. Someone important. Ethan slowly stood. His heart pounded. Lily. For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Her eyes moved around the room, then back to him. What is this? Ethan swallowed. Hard. Lily, please sit down. No. Her voice shook. What is this? Before Ethan could answer, several men entered the private dining area. Members of the company's executive team, the board of directors people. Lily recognized immediately. They walked directly toward Ethan. Then one of them smiled. Good evening, Mr. Blackwell. The world seemed to stop. Lily's eyes widened. Her breathing became uneven. Another executive approached. It's good to have you back, sir. Back, sir, Mr. Blackwell. The pieces suddenly connected. The cleaning job. The mysterious absences. The strange moments, the unexplained details, everything. Her face turned pale. Slowly, she looked at Ethan, or rather the man she now realized was Ethan Blackwell, owner of the company, billionaire CEO, the man she had unknowingly fallen in love with. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then she whispered one word. No. Pain filled Ethan's chest. Lily. No. This time her voice was louder. Tears formed in her eyes. You lied to me. The words struck him like a punch because they were true. He had lied. Every single day. I can explain. Explain. A tear rolled down her cheek. Explain. What? Her voice trembled. Explain how you pretended to be someone else for months. People nearby had begun noticing the tension. The room suddenly felt much smaller, much heavier. Ethan stepped forward. I never meant to hurt you, but you did. Another tear fell. You looked me in the eyes every day. Her voice broke and lied. Lily, please. No. She shook her head. I trusted you. The pain in her voice shattered him more than any business failure, more than any betrayal, because he knew she was right. Trust was everything, and he had broken it. I started this because I needed to know if people liked me for who I am. The words rushed out. I was tired of being used. I was tired of wondering if anyone was genuine. Lily stared at him. Do you hear yourself? Ethan fell silent. She wiped away her tears. You didn't trust me. Lily, you tested me. Her voice cracked. You judged me before you even knew me. The truth hurt because it was real. Ethan had spent months searching for someone genuine. Yet in doing so, he had hidden behind deception, and now the woman he loved was paying the price. For several seconds, neither spoke. Finally, Lily took a deep breath. I don't care about your money. Ethan looked up. I never did. I know. No. Tears filled her eyes again. You don't know. Her voice softened. If you knew, you would have trusted me. Those words cut deeper than anything else because she was right. The issue had never been money. It had always been trust, and he had failed. Slowly, Lily stepped backward, away from him, away from the table, away from everything. Ethan felt panic rising. Lily, please don't go. For a brief moment, she looked at him. The sadness in her eyes broke his heart. Then she spoke the words he feared most. I don't even know who you are anymore. And with that, she turned and walked away. Ethan stood frozen, watching her disappear. The room felt silent despite the people around him. His chest felt hollow. The victory he had dreamed about for months suddenly felt meaningless. He had found a woman who loved him, a woman who chose him over wealth, a woman who saw his heart, and now he had lost her, not because she cared about money, but because he had hidden the truth. As the restaurant doors closed behind Lily, Ethan remained standing there alone. For the first time since beginning his disguise, he realized something painful. Finding true love had been the easy part. Keeping it might be much harder. The days after Lily walked out of the restaurant were some of the hardest Ethan Blackwell had ever experienced, and Ethan had experienced a lot of difficult moments in his life. He had survived ruthless business battles. He had watched competitors try to destroy his company. He had endured the humiliation of Vanessa's betrayal. He had spent years carrying loneliness in silence. But none of those things compared to this, because this time he wasn't losing money. He wasn't losing a business deal. He wasn't losing his reputation. He was losing the woman he loved. The next morning, Ethan arrived at company headquarters, earlier than usual. For a few moments, he sat alone inside his office, his real office, the office he hadn't used in months. The room felt strange now. The expensive furniture, the beautiful view, the luxurious surroundings, none of it brought comfort, not anymore. His eyes drifted toward the elevator doors. Part of him hoped Lily would appear. Part of him hoped she would walk in and somehow everything would be okay. But deep down he knew that wasn't going to happen. Around 9:00, Sarah, his assistant, entered the office. She immediately noticed his exhausted appearance. "You didn't sleep." Ethan gave a weak smile. "Not much." Sarah hesitated. Then she carefully placed a folder on his desk. "You have 3 meetings this morning. I'll cancel them." Sarah looked surprised. "All of them?" Ethan nodded. For the first time in years, work felt unimportant. Nothing seemed important except Lily. The rest of the day wasn't any easier. Word had spread quickly throughout the company. Employees had learned that the cleaner named Eric was actually Ethan Blackwell. The revelation shocked everyone. Some couldn't believe it. Others laughed about it. Many discussed it nonstop. But Ethan didn't care about their reactions. He only cared about one person, Lily. Unfortunately, Lily wasn't interested in talking. Every time Ethan tried to approach her, she walked away. Every email went unanswered. Every message remained unread. Every attempt failed. The distance between them seemed to grow larger every day. One afternoon, Ethan spotted her leaving the building. He quickly followed. "Lily." She kept walking. "Lily, please." She stopped briefly, just long enough to glance back at him. The sadness in her eyes nearly broke him. Then she turned and continued walking without another word. Ethan stood there helplessly. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Not because he lacked money, not because he lacked influence, but because he couldn't fix a broken heart with either. That evening, Marcus visited Ethan's penthouse. The moment he entered, he frowned. The place looked terrible. Food containers sat on the kitchen counter. Business documents covered the floor. The curtains remained closed. The apartment felt dark, empty, almost abandoned. Marcus found Ethan sitting on the couch staring at nothing. "You look awful." "Thanks. I mean it." Ethan laughed bitterly. "So do I." Marcus sat down. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Marcus sighed. "Have you talked to her?" "I've tried." And Ethan shook his head. "Nothing." Marcus leaned back. "You hurt her." "I know." "No." Marcus looked directly at him. "I don't think you understand." Ethan frowned. Marcus continued. "She wasn't angry because you're rich." "I know." "She was angry because she trusted you." The words stung. Because they were true. Every day Ethan spent alone made that truth clearer. Lily had never cared about his money. Never. The flowers, the shoes, the lunches, the conversations. None of those things had anything to do with wealth. She had cared about him. And in return, he had hidden behind a lie. The realization hurt. A lot. A few days later, heavy rain covered the city. Dark clouds filled the sky. Most people rushed indoors to avoid the storm. But Ethan found himself driving toward Lily's apartment building. He didn't have a plan. He didn't know what he would say. He only knew he couldn't give up. Not yet. The rain soaked his suit as he walked toward the entrance. Moments later he stood outside her apartment door. His heart pounded. Slowly he knocked. For several seconds nothing happened. Then the door opened. Lily appeared. The moment she saw him, her expression changed. She immediately started closing the door. Ethan reacted quickly. "Please." The door stopped moving. Silence filled the hallway. Rainwater dripped from Ethan's clothes onto the floor. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Lily sighed. "What do you want?" Her voice wasn't angry. That somehow hurt even more. It sounded tired, exhausted, broken. Ethan swallowed. "I need to talk to you." "We already talked." "No." His voice cracked. "We really didn't." Lily looked away. For several seconds, she seemed to debate whether to shut the door completely. Then she stepped aside. 5 minutes. Ethan entered. The apartment felt familiar, simple, comfortable, warm, the exact opposite of his penthouse. Yet somehow it felt more like home. Lily remained standing, arms folded, guarded, distant. Ethan hated seeing her that way, especially knowing he was responsible. For a moment, neither knew what to say. Then Ethan did something completely unexpected. He dropped to his knees. Lily's eyes widened. "Ethan, no." His voice trembled. "Please let me say this." Tears filled his eyes, real tears, the kind he hadn't allowed himself to shed in years. "I never meant to hurt you." Lily remained silent. Ethan continued. "When I started this, I wasn't trying to test you." A bitter laugh escaped him. "At least not at first." He wiped his eyes. "I was lonely." The honesty surprised even him. For years he had hidden his pain. Now it poured out freely. "I was tired of wondering if people liked me." His voice broke. "Tired of wondering if anyone actually cared." Lily's expression softened slightly, but she remained silent. "I spent years surrounded by people." Another tear fell. "Thousands of people." He laughed sadly. "And somehow I was completely alone." The apartment grew quiet. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. Ethan looked down, then continued. "When I met you, everything changed." His voice became softer. "You treated me like I mattered." Lily's eyes glistened. "You listened." He smiled sadly. "You remembered my name." Another pause. "You bought me shoes." This time a small tear rolled down Lily's cheek. Ethan saw it, but he continued. "Nobody had done something like that for me in years." His voice cracked completely. "Not because they wanted something." He shook his head. "Just because they cared." The room felt heavy with emotion. For several moments neither spoke. Then Ethan looked directly at her. Not as a billionaire. Not as a CEO. Just as a man. A man whose heart was breaking. "You were the first person who saw me." Lily stared at him. "What do you mean?" Ethan swallowed. "You saw me before the money." His eyes filled again. "You saw me before the title." His voice trembled. "You saw the human being." A long silence followed. Then Ethan whispered the truth he had been avoiding. "I fell in love with you." The words hung in the air. Raw, honest, painful. For a moment, Lily looked away. Tears quietly rolled down her cheeks. Not because she hated him, not because she wanted him gone, but because she could finally see the truth. The man kneeling before her wasn't a billionaire begging for forgiveness. He was a wounded man, a lonely man, a man who had been hurt so many times that he became afraid to trust. And despite everything, he was now risking his heart again. Neither knew what would happen next. Neither knew whether their relationship could survive. But for the first time since the truth came out, Lily wasn't looking at Ethan with anger. She was looking at him with understanding. And for Ethan, that tiny change felt like the first ray of sunlight after a long storm. After Ethan left Lily's apartment, that rainy evening neither of them slept much. The conversation replayed in their minds over and over again. For Ethan, it was the first time he had completely opened his heart to someone in years. For Lily, it was the first time she had truly seen the pain hidden behind Ethan's actions. She still felt hurt. The betrayal hadn't magically disappeared. The trust he had broken wasn't instantly repaired. But something had changed. For the first time since learning the truth, she understood why he had done it. That didn't make it right, but it helped her see the lonely man behind the mistake. The following week was quiet. Ethan didn't bombard her with messages. He didn't pressure her. He didn't show up unexpectedly. Instead, he gave her space, something Lily appreciated more than he realized. Every day she found herself thinking about him. She remembered the lunches, they shared the jokes, they laughed at the way he always listened when she talked about her mother, the way he never judged anyone, the way he genuinely cared about people. Then she remembered the lies, and her heart became conflicted all over again. One evening, Lily sat beside her mother in their apartment. The older woman noticed her daughter's distant expression. "You've been thinking about him again." Lily looked up. "Is it that obvious?" Her mother smiled softly. "Very." Lily sighed. "I don't know what to do." Her mother remained quiet, allowing her to continue. "I trusted him." A tear formed in Lily's eye. "He lied to me every single day." Her mother nodded. "That's true." Lily looked down, but when he came here, she hesitated. He wasn't acting. Her mother reached over and gently squeezed her hand. "No, he was hurting." "Yes." The room grew quiet. Finally, her mother spoke. "People make mistakes, Lily." Lily remained silent. "But not everyone fights to fix them." Those words stayed with Lily long after the conversation ended, because Ethan was fighting, not with money, not with power, not with influence, but with honesty, for perhaps the first time in his life. 3 days later, Lily made a decision. She sent Ethan a simple text message. "Can we talk?" Ethan stared at the message for nearly a full minute. His heart pounded. His hands shook. Finally, he replied, "Anytime." The following evening they met at a small cafe across town. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't luxurious. It wasn't connected to Ethan's world of wealth. It was simply a quiet place where two people could talk. When Lily arrived, Ethan was already waiting. For a moment, neither knew what to say. Then Lily sat down. "Hi." Ethan smiled softly. "Hi." The conversation started slowly, awkwardly, like two people trying to rebuild a bridge that had collapsed. For nearly an hour they talked. Really talked. No secrets. No disguises. No pretending. Lily asked questions, and Ethan answered every one. Honestly. Completely. She asked about his childhood, his business, his past relationships, his fears, his regrets. Nothing was hidden. For the first time, she was meeting the real Ethan Blackwell. Not the billionaire the world saw. Not Eric the cleaner. Just Ethan the man. At one point, Lily looked directly at him. "Why didn't you trust me?" The question hurt because Ethan had asked himself the same thing countless times. He looked down at his coffee, then answered truthfully, "I wanted to." His voice was quiet. "I really wanted to." He met her eyes, "but I was scared." Lily listened. "Scared of?" "What?" Ethan sighed. "That if you knew who I was, everything would change." His expression darkened. "After Vanessa, I stopped believing people could love me without loving my money." The pain in his voice was impossible to ignore. For years, that wound had controlled him, influenced every relationship, every decision, every fear. Lily stared at him, then something inside her softened because she realized Ethan hadn't been trying to manipulate her. He had been protecting a broken heart. Poorly, wrongly, but honestly. For several moments neither spoke. Then Lily finally said the words Ethan had been waiting to hear. "What hurt wasn't your money." Ethan looked up. "It wasn't your company." His eyes never left hers. "It wasn't even the disguise." A tear formed in her eye. "It was the fact that you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth." Ethan nodded slowly, painfully. "I know." The words came out barely, above a whisper. "I know." For a moment silence filled the space between them. Then Ethan took a deep breath. "I can't change what I did." His voice trembled. "But if I could go back, I would." Another pause. "I'd tell you the truth from the beginning." Lily stared at him, searching his eyes, looking for dishonesty, looking for excuses, looking for deception. She found none. Only regret, only sincerity, only a man desperately hoping for a second chance. Finally, she reached across the table. Her hand rested gently on top of his. Ethan froze. Emotion rushed through him. "I can't promise everything will go back to normal immediately." His eyes filled with tears. "I understand, but I don't want to lose what we had." For a moment, Ethan couldn't speak. The relief was overwhelming. "You don't." Lily shook her head. A small smile appeared on her face. "No." A tear rolled down Ethan's cheek. This time he didn't hide it. For the first time in weeks, hope returned. Not because everything was fixed, not because the pain had disappeared, but because they were finally moving forward together. Lily smiled softly. "One condition." Ethan laughed through his tears. "Anything. No more secrets." His smile widened. "No more secrets." They sat together, as the evening sunlight faded beyond the cafe windows, talking, laughing, learning each other. All over again. This time without lies. This time without masks. This time with truth. And as Ethan looked at Lily, he realized something important. Love wasn't built on perfection. It was built on honesty, on forgiveness, on choosing each other despite mistakes. And for the first time since the restaurant, he allowed himself to believe that maybe their story wasn't ending after all. Maybe it was only beginning. 1 year later, sunlight poured through the stained glass windows of a beautiful chapel overlooking the city. Rows of white flowers decorated the aisles. Soft music filled the air. Family members and close friends sat quietly waiting for the ceremony to begin. At the front of the chapel stood Ethan Blackwell. He wore a simple black suit, not the most expensive suit he owned, not the kind worn to business galas or billionaire events. Just a suit chosen for one reason. Today wasn't about money. Today was about love. As Ethan waited, his heart pounded harder than it ever had during any business meeting. He smiled to himself. For years, he had negotiated billion-dollar deals without fear. Yet standing at this altar made him nervous because this moment mattered more than any contract ever could. Marcus stepped beside him and grinned. "You look terrified." Ethan laughed. "I am." Marcus shook his head. "Relax. She's not running away." "I know." Besides, Marcus continued, "after everything the two of you survived, this is the easy part." Ethan smiled. Maybe Marcus was right. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been loneliness, heartbreak, mistakes, tears, misunderstandings, and moments when Ethan truly believed he had lost Lily forever. But somehow they had found their way back to each other. Not because their relationship was perfect, but because they chose honesty every single day. The music changed. Everyone stood. Ethan turned toward the entrance, and then he saw her, Lily. She looked breathtaking. Her white dress flowed gracefully as she walked down the aisle. Tears immediately filled Ethan's eyes. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The guests, the music, the flowers. None of it mattered. All he could see was her, the woman who had changed his life. The woman who had loved him when she believed he was nothing more than a cleaner. The woman who had taught him how to trust again. The woman who had healed a broken heart. When Lily finally reached the altar, she smiled. The same smile that had captured Ethan's heart over a year ago. The same smile that still made his heart race. The ceremony began. The minister spoke about love, about commitment, about trust. Each word carried special meaning for them because trust was the very thing they had fought hardest to rebuild. Then came the vows. Ethan took Lily's hands in his. For a moment, emotion threatened to overwhelm him. He looked into her eyes, then he spoke. "Lily, before I met you, I thought I had everything." A few guests smiled. Others listened carefully. "I had success." He squeezed her hands gently. "I had money." A small laugh moved through the crowd. "I had things people spend their entire lives chasing." His voice softened. "But I was lonely." Tears appeared in Lily's eyes. "Ethan," continued, "then you came into my life." His own eyes glistened. "You treated me with kindness when you had no reason to." He smiled. "You saw value in me when you believed I was just a cleaner." A few people wiped away tears. "You taught me that genuine love still exists." His voice cracked. "And every day since then you've made me a better man." Lily's tears spilled freely now. Ethan smiled through his own emotions. "I promise to spend the rest of my life loving you, respecting you, and never hiding the truth from you again." The chapel filled with soft laughter. Then Lily began her vows. She looked directly at him. "Ethan, when I first met you, I thought you were an ordinary cleaner." More laughter. She smiled. "Turns out I was wrong." The guests chuckled. "But I wasn't wrong about your heart." Ethan's eyes filled again. "You are kind." Her voice trembled. "You are loyal." A tear rolled down her cheek. "And even though you made mistakes, you never stopped fighting for us." She squeezed his hands. "You taught me that forgiveness is one of the strongest forms of love." The room fell silent. "And I promised to spend every day choosing you." There wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. Not even Marcus could hide his emotions. A few moments later, the minister smiled. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." The crowd erupted into applause. Ethan barely heard it because Lily was already smiling at him. And for the first time in his life, he knew exactly where he belonged. The kiss that followed was met with cheers and laughter. It felt like the beginning of a brand new chapter, not the end of a story, but the start of a beautiful future. Several months later, Ethan and Lily hosted a company celebration at Blackwell Technologies. Employees from every department attended. Executives, receptionists, security guards, cleaners, everyone. During the event, Ethan stood on stage and shared a simple message. "No matter your position in this company, you matter." The room became quiet. He smiled. "Because greatness isn't measured by job titles." His eyes moved toward the cleaning staff. "It's measured by character." The applause lasted several minutes. Many employees knew exactly why those words mattered to him. After the event ended, Ethan stepped outside for fresh air. The evening sky glowed with thousands of stars. As he stood there, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Looks like things worked out." Ethan turned. The elderly janitor stood there smiling. The same man whose words had inspired everything. The same man who had unknowingly changed Ethan's life. Ethan laughed. "I'd say so." The old man nodded. Then he asked the question Ethan would never forget. "So tell me, son," his eyes twinkled. "Did you find someone who would stay when the money disappeared?" Ethan looked across the courtyard. Lily stood nearby laughing with several employees. Her smile was as beautiful as ever. His heart filled with gratitude. Then he looked back at the janitor and smiled. "Yes." The old man chuckled. "I thought you might." For a moment, neither spoke. Then the janitor patted Ethan's shoulder. That makes you richer than any billionaire. As the old man walked away, Ethan thought about those words. Years ago, he would have disagreed. Years ago, he believed wealth was measured in money. Now he knew better. Money could buy houses. Money could buy cars. Money could buy luxury. But money could never buy genuine love. Only the heart could do that. And standing there beneath the stars, watching the woman he loved, Ethan realized something beautiful. The greatest treasure he had ever found wasn't hidden in bank accounts. It wasn't found in business success. It wasn't measured in dollars. It was Lily, the woman who saw him before she saw his wealth. The woman who chose him. And in that moment, Ethan Blackwell finally understood something that had taken him years to learn. He wasn't the richest man because of what he owned. He was the richest man because of who stood beside him. If this story touched your heart, comment below. Where are you watching from? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters in life.